call the meeting to order. Let's pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, we have public comment. Oh, no, we don't. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
No changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have public comment. Somewhere the sheet was hanging around.
Chair Soa, no one has signed up for public comment.
No one has signed up for public comment, sir.
Okay. Thank you. We have a special award tonight. Carol, you want to come forward?
Just so that I don't miss a corner.
Smile for the camera.
This is a budget award that has been presented to Carol Bright and her staff. The Government Finance Officers Association established the Distinguished Budget Presentation Awards Program in 1984 to encourage and assist state and local governments to prepare budget documents of the very highest quality that reflect both the guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting and the Government Finance Officers Association's best practices on budgeting, and then to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. Documents submitted to the Budget Awards Program are reviewed by selected members of the GFOA professional staff and by outside reviewers with experience in public sector budgeting. Each budget document submitted to the program is evaluated separately by 3 reviewers. Each reviewer gives a given budget document as being either not proficient or outstanding in regards to 27 specific criteria grouped into 4 basic categories. The reviewer also provides an overall rating for each of the basic categories. To receive the award, a budget document must be rated either proficient or outstanding by at least 2 of the 3 reviewers for all 4 basic categories, as well as for the 14 of the 27 specific criteria identified as mandatory. Congratulations to Carol Bright and Clackamas River Water for receiving this distinguished award. Carol? I think you should have that.
Action item number 1, resolution 19-2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 19-2014 establishing wholesale water rates charged to Sunrise Water Authority effective July 1st, 2014.
Second.
Cut that in.
So the current rates that we charge Sunrise for the wholesale water purchases is 62.02 cents per 100 cubic feet. The proposed rates effective July 1st would be 0.63572. This will increase the total wholesale revenue by approximately $19,000 for the fiscal year. And the rate increase has already been reviewed and accepted as appropriate by Sunrise Water Authority.
Any questions or comments? If not, we will have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Carol? No.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kwame?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Action item number 2. Cam?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've had a pretty busy year with our work sessions, and one of the items that was on our agenda was to take a look at the general manager's evaluation process and possibly make some changes in it. Unfortunately, it's one of those items we were just unable to complete this year. So I would like to suggest that we use the same format that we did last year. It will be based on the goals and objectives that were mutually agreed on by the board and the general manager. as well as other information that he can provide us for those things that he might have accomplished that were not actually on the goals and objectives. After everybody submits their evaluations, then we can do a composite evaluation at your direction.
Thank you. Will you pass those out, please? Anyone from the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll go on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, briefly before we move on, the general manager will be forwarding information to all board members as to what he has accomplished on the goals and objectives, so that we will have a basis for writing these reports, but we should try to get them in before the last 2 weeks of June, so that I can complete whatever you assign me to do by the end of June.
If they're back to you by the end of the month, is that good enough?
Assuming we've gotten everything we need from the general manager first. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed on to the consent agenda. Ken,
I move to approve.
Second.
any comments or questions?
I believe I had one.
If not, all those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Hubbardston?
Aye.
Commissioner Carney?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sola?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
I did have one question I wanted to ask of the general manager, if I may.
Okay.
On item 79869, which is the Clackamas Community College payment, my understanding is that part of that is the compensation study that was done,
I believe so.
and we had informally discussed the idea of sharing that and its costs with Sunrise Water Authority. Is that something we would be able to do?
Yes, I believe it's on the agenda for the next commission meeting. I think I saw it on there.
Okay. That was all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Under informational reports, number 3, Ken.
This is a report from the executive session on April 28th on 2014. The board met in closed session at 7:21 p.m. and received updated information regarding lawsuits and union negotiations. We received an update on the Mitchell election contest, an update on the Oregon City right-of-way fee, an update on the Court of Appeals decision that had been pending for a couple of years, an update on the federal case filed by a former commissioner, and a report on the progress of union negotiations. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, Assistant Bill Charge Study. Carol?
We budgeted in this current year budget $20,000 to do a system development charges rate study, and we have contracted with the FCS group. This had been presented to the board previously. They have a lot of our data, most of what they need to do the SDC study. They need a little bit of additional information. Engineering and finance are currently providing that information to them so that they can then look at the numbers and they can do an analysis and a methodology review of our system development charges. We do anticipate this to be completed by June 30th, and those results will be brought to the board for approval and updating of the fees and charges.
Question?
Yes.
So, what's the process for this agency for setting the rate for system development charges? What goes into setting, and just the bullets?
We, the rate was set many years ago. We have not done a system development study in a long time. It is based upon the water master plan and the projects that are included in that. And so in some ways, we're a little bit backwards. We should maybe wait until after we have our new water master plan that will be completed by December of 2015. But it had been such a long time, and our rates are really out of whack with most of the neighboring districts. There's a few that are lower than ours. Most of them are significantly higher. So what they will do is look at the capital projects and make a determination on those projects if that is system kind of enhancement expansion versus what costs should be contributed for reimbursement by new people coming in.
So the reason I asked the question is I have been involved in lots of cases, you know, the Dolan case back in the 90s and all of those things that have been litigated over system development charges. And I believe we have to be careful about making sure that when we collect those funds, we can justify where they're spent and why we charge them, so that we don't get too far off-site to get ourselves into trouble. And we've never had this conversation since I've been on the board, and so I was just concerned about whether or not we have made sure that we comply and that we, I mean, to me, on what side of that fence you are, if you're the developer, the charges are always way too expensive. But if you're a ratepayer, they're not expensive enough. I mean, that's the balance that has to be figured out. And I've never really understood, you know, how you do that, because there are opposing views. I mean, you just never get there where you want to get to. So
There are standard methodologies, and you know, FCS Group has been doing this for a long time, so they're not going to come back to us with some new and kind of outrageous methodology. They're going to use a standard, justifiable methodology that has held up in the past.
okay.
We don't really have a lot of growth in the district,
Right.
and so it's going to be kind of looking at that reimbursement versus improvement portion of the SDCs. And I think it's difficult to make growth or new customers pay 100% of their impact on the system, but that's kind of what you attempt to approach with.
Well, that's what we'd like to
SDC
tell our
methodology.
ratepayers, is that we charge 100% of the impact, but we all know that that's not the case. And there's no way to achieve that. It's not
Right.
reasonable to
Right.
do that. But sitting in this chair, the questions that you have to answer are, you know, a system development charge, how does that impact our treatment plant? How does that affect, you know, pump station growth or not? And, you know, they get mired down in the weeds with kind of how that goes. And I would just like, at the end of this process, so that we don't end up like we did with the rate stuff, I just want to make sure that we all understand that process, so that there's no surprises at the end going, oh, well, I didn't know that, you know.
Right.
So that's all my comment is. I just want to make sure going in at the front end of this, that you understand what the expectation
And when
is.
it's completed, we will come to the board with a explanation of the methodology and how that works, and how the new development, new customers would be paying their way into the system.
So would it be possible to get the methodology before the end of it, so that if we have questions, we're not having to go and do it again?
Yes.
We don't care what the result is, we just want to know how to evaluate
Yeah.
this, so that if there's a red flag, we all can say, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense.
I will get that.
Good, thanks. Thanks, Larry.
Yes?
Just a question, isn't there, I don't know if it's a rule of thumb or it's an actual law, that the SDC charges have to be expended on system improvements within a somewhat confined period of time, like 3 to 5 years, something of that effect?
No, bonded indebtedness needs to be spent in 3 years. I believe system development charges need to be spent within 10.
Within 10, okay.
We currently have a pretty small balance in the system development charges reserve fund, because the money that we collected, we have used on appropriate system development projects.
But you have a 10-year window,
Yes,
so that gives you a chance to build up that reserve.
yes.
Thank you.
So, one last question. So, we're careful about making sure that we only use that for capital improvement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
Right answer.
with one caveat, we did use it to pay some of the bonded debt
Yeah, yes,
payments.
right.
And that is an allowable
Yeah,
use.
that's legitimate
And
use.
certainly now the balance is low enough that we're not relying on
Yeah.
system development fund anymore for the debt payments. We'll be paying the debt payments out of the general fund.
Any more questions?
Just a
I
comment.
just have one. Oh, go ahead.
I think just to assure the board, and if the board has a different desire than what I'm gonna say, it would be helpful to know that before we come back. Because we have a statewide requirement to have the capital improvement plan updated in 2015, you're probably gonna see us recommending to the board when we bring back the results of the FCS study, that we be a little bit conservative so that when the capital improvement plan is completed, if there are appropriate adjustments to be made, we would make it at that time.
In 2015, after we get the information
Right.
about the CIP.
Right.
Carol, my question is this the same computer geeks that did the rate study?
This is FCS Group, which does rate analysis and system development charge analysis. And they have many, many years of experience doing this. And I'm not sure that I'll have them come and present it to you. I think maybe I'll be able to present it and explain it,
That'd be good.
maybe in a.
Larry, I think she doesn't trust you, right?
Trust but verify.
Thank you. Item number 5, engineering report. Adam.
This is the only reason I came tonight, Adam.
15 minutes of not disappointing.
Thank you, sir.
I know what this is all about.
I appreciate your work. You're at bated breath.
He's gonna say this in 5 minutes.
I hope so. No, what, you can do it shorter than that, you can say it's done, and we slap hands and get out of
The
here.
generator's up and running. Any questions?
That's a start.
All right.
You're going the right direction here, Adam.
Good, good.
The second question would be, what's left?
Yeah.
Good question.
If it's cleanup,
When is it all done?
Yeah.
Good question. Well, I did want to present a couple things. I got some pictures to share and get right and started. We were substantially complete with the project as of April 30, right on the schedule. And what that means is that everything is up and running that needs to be. All the electrical upgrades in the plant and the low lift and the generator facility itself are all functioning. Also wanted to talk about the budget a little bit, where we're going to be ending up, and then past construction into overall project wrap up. That's a big list, I realize, just kind of really targeting the major items of work that have been completed to date, which again are all the main scope of the project. Installing the generator and all its equipment, all the upgrades within the treatment plant and the pump station, all the electrical connections, all the site finishes, well, not all of them, that's kind of what we've got left, but we're about 80% done with that last bullet there, the site finish work. So PGE did some lighting upgrades for us. There's some lighting that also is part of the generator enclosures. Overall, I think Rob would agree about Cummings that the lighting out there is greatly improved, much more of a habitable appearance, from 24/7. Some improvements that were made that were much needed there for lighting. So remaining work, like I said, we've got some site finishes, cleanup, Oregon Electric and the subcontractors are working to get all those items completed. PGE still has to do their power line conversion. If you recall back when we did our initial study, and PGE weighed in on the dispatchable power part of this project, they requested that we upgrade our existing primary electrical service to a secondary, which means that it basically changes the location of where our meter is on the facility. So all the lines coming into the plant now will be under the operation of PGE and not CRW.
Owned and maintained by
Correct.
PGE now versus us.
Correct, which is a great,
Yes.
it costs a little more to buy the power from them, but relieves us of so much liability that it's more than worth it.
I have a question. How long is your punch list?
We're doing a formal walkthrough next week.
Okay.
So we don't have a complete punch list at
Okay.
this point, but what we
And
have.
so you're
is
working on building that? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been one of those things, you know, we try to have fed items to the contractor while he's on site, so they didn't have to come back.
Yeah.
The goal is to basically wrap that up next week, and then they have.
I was just wondering whether it's something that, you know, the punch list is a work in progress,
Yep.
but it sometimes they can become rather lengthy, and you start to struggle with, oh God, how are we gonna get all this stuff done? I was hoping that that's not where we were, and that we were fairly close.
Yeah, we've coordinated pretty closely with Oregon Electric through the project to catch items as they came about, and they've corrected those for the most part as they came about, so that's really helped, or will help keep that punch list minimal. Pictures. Picking up where we left off, I guess back in December, this is just kind of taking you through where we are today. This is the generator facility is back here, the switchgear and the generator sitting back behind it. This is a corner of the treatment plant, with basically the main electrical level of the treatment plant. These are the new feeders, the electrical feeders that are going to be coming into the plant. This is kind of a close-up shot of the generator on the left. Basically the generator feeders, just kind of give you an idea of what those look like coming in from the new switchgear. So large conductors. And then this photo on the right is the PGE portion of the paralleling switchgear. So it's where the power, the main power, comes in now from the PGE transformer initially to that bus. This is a look inside the switchgear. Again, it's the brains of the system. This replaced, and I'll show you in a bit, the old 1964 era switchgear that we had inside the plant. That was one of the safety issues in there. That's all gone now, it's all thrown out. Just kind of gives you a picture of what it looks like inside there. They didn't get any close-ups of the screenshots. This is a touch screen operation to fire up the generator, to do all sorts of fun stuff out there. But again, just some snapshots. Again, this is a look at the feeders, the conduits. They knocked a hole in the wall and reinforced it, and got the main feeder conduits through into the plant. This picture here is down at the low lift pump station, down at the intake by the river. Kind of a before and after shot, although I didn't show you one of the old gear, or the old motor control centers there that operate the pumps down there. There's 4 big pumps. There's 2 of them right there. But tore out the old stuff, and there's the new motor control center sitting there. Ready there. At that point, I believe that's one of the manufacturer reps that did some system testing to make sure it's up and running. We had them do a painting against the wall and the conduit to kind of do a blending. So that's what those guys are doing. Same color as the treatment plant wall, so a little bit of aesthetic.
I have a question. The electrical work all looks great. The question that I come to is, was this ever looked at by a structural guy for seismic? You know, all of this stuff doesn't move. There's no expansion in any of this.
Yep.
I just was wondering what your take was on that.
Yeah, they did that as part of the CMDC contract. Anything that was structural, they had a structural engineer design.
Okay.
Yep, including the gear. All the electrical equipment is rated structurally, and then for the installation, it was all designed structurally to meet the Oregon Structural Specialty Code.
For what level of seismic activity? Do you happen to know?
It's Oregon Structural Specialty Code governs, and it's by region, and I couldn't tell you.
It's 4B.
It's 2 or
It should be 4B.
Okay.
Which would be-
What level? 4B is, 4A is the worst, so California gets
Right.
4A, we're just one bump below them now. We used to only go to 2.
Correct.
Oregon used to
Yep.
just, because we didn't think we had any problems, you know, everything was good here, but.
Does that convert to a Richter scale?
They could, not to Richter, it changes over to shake potential. And so they redo those calculations to determine how much ground movement there'll be and the velocity of that movement, because that's what determines the size, the frequency of the spacing, of the bracing.
Correct.
When they do that, and so that's.
And that's based regionally on your, soil type.
Right,
What the
exactly.
faults look like in the area, the geology and all that.
Right.
So, but it has all been designed for
Yeah, I mean-
Oregon structural code.
I mean, if it's had a structural look, then
Yep.
they've done that, so.
Yep, good question. This is another shot before and after in the high lift pump room up at the treatment plant. These 3 starters, motor starters, the 2 over here and the 1 over here, those were upgraded about 3 years ago. This project, the generator project, upgraded these 3 and combined them. Well, there's 2 there actually. One other one over on the far wall. They all got combined in this photo here under one motor control center. So there's 3 pumps that are powered out of that unit now. Here's one, kind of a good picture of, again, 64 era technology, again, operated well, maintained well, but this is just a typical change out of that type of equipment inside the plant. This set of controls operates some of our smaller pumps, like treatment pumps, alum pumps, compressor, that sort of thing. Here's the old switch gear getting torn out of the electrical room. Again, this whole wall was very outdated, and they tore it completely out. It's kind of a progressive demo there. That's the bare wall. We don't really have any plans for that today. But, it's definitely open space right now. Kind of an overview shot. Put a new light pole in. There's PG's transformer over there. Again, the generator, switch gear, fuel tank. Some of the site grading and finishes you can see. They graded this all out. Everything's really looking pretty nice out there. Rob keeps reminding me it's just in time for the 2014 anniversary of the plant, so that's kind of just a different view. We've got
does your SCADA system allow you to monitor all the positions of all the stuff in the plant remotely?
Yes.
So from your desk, you
through
can take a look and see what we got
for the generator?
for everything, plant-wide.
Yes, Rob can.
Rob's here, there he is.
You mean at this location?
From any location.
Not from any location, no.
Okay, so it's all local only.
It's local.
Okay, so we didn't automate remotely so that the thinking being, if there's a problem, you whip out your laptop, you dial in, and you look at the plant and go, oh, well, there's the problem, I gotta go down there. Or, I'll fix that, here you go, done. No, I didn't know how it was designed.
We use auto dialers for that. We just use alarms and auto dialers.
Okay, so you're just getting
But we're not
a gross
operating
alarm,
from
yeah.
remotely, no.
Yeah, okay, so it's not on the SCADA system.
It's not a remotely accessible SCADA system.
Okay.
It's all that information from that new generator is available in the plant.
In the plant, okay,
Yes.
okay.
It is talking to the existing monitoring systems in there. We purchased some software from Caterpillar to allow us to
Yeah, right.
talk back and forth, see what's going on with the
It's
generator.
on a dedicated server and it's operated there. So some other plants are, but we have chosen not to do that.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that was.
Yeah, and that's a good point Rob just brought up too, that keep in mind that on the switchgear side, there's a PGE, it's a paralleling system. So there's a whole, half of this basically is PGE's system, they can operate remotely, the generator. For our purposes, really, while we can operate it from the site, apart from that system, we're really just more of a monitoring position.
Yeah.
We don't really need to.
So you're looking and seeing what's going on, but you don't control it?
Right, correct. Yep.
Adam,
Yes.
if PG&E's power goes down, does somebody have to turn on the new generator, or does it go on automatically?
Automatically.
Thank you.
Yep, there's a timing and a warning system that goes off, and then it'll start remotely.
Seemed like that would be the logical thing, but I
Yep.
didn't know, so I thought I'd ask.
Yep, power on demand. So,
Okay.
looking at the budget, these are fairly firm, but again, I have estimated on there since we don't have all the final billings from the contractor at this point and our internal costs. But it gives you an idea of what we budgeted for the project, 3.2, and again, this is not just construction, not just the contract cost, but all overhead, design, surveys, everything that went into the project the last few years. And then our estimated and actual costs. So the 3.2, we're just under that, the 3.1 and change.
59,000 under budget.
Right, and again, they're estimates. The contractor portion, Oregon Electric, the CMGC, their guaranteed maximum price was just under 2.1 million. That included pieces of the construction, the main piece of the construction, and a lighting and the design budget as well. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like they're going to be within the GMP. I'll share that. As far as contingency, if you recall, we had a owner-approved contingency amount in the guaranteed maximum price to be utilized only as authorized during construction for items that were unforeseen or needed during the scope of construction that were included in the original scope. To date, we've utilized about half of that contingency, and I'll show you a listing of what that's gone towards. So there's about $54,000 remaining. For my budgeting right now, I'm considering all of that contingency is utilized, but when we get to the final report in a month or two, and I'll present the project acceptance to you, you'll see those final numbers as they stand. So there's the contingency. I apologize for the font size, but as you can see, a number of things came up during the course of construction to be able to utilize an extra work type contingency item like that for items that were not included in existing line items or bid items. There's always, I'll say it's always necessary for a retrofit type project like this. And it's very convenient to be able to utilize an approved amount like that. So again, it totals about $46,000 of what we've used to date of the original 99 and change. Number of things, there were certain things with site finishes or things that we might have found when we were digging in the ground. There was one fairly large item was PGE changed their conduit size kind of 11th hour after construction started. Went from a 3-inch to a 5-inch conduit, so that added some cost. Again, any number of things that we addressed utilizing that contingency. So as I shared, with the contingency use, everything that Oregon Electric is doing out there will be within their guaranteed maximum price. And the last bit was to remind the board that we'll be seeing a credit from PGE because we're participating in the DSG program, a substantial credit that I have not included in those budgeted amounts because they're budgeted amounts, but this credit will come in after that to credit to that total.
Is that a check back to us?
Yes. Yep. For participating in their
Credit could mean reduction in bill for X period of time or something, so.
Yeah, no, it's a one-time credit, and it's based on the size of the generator, how many generators we put in, and their evaluation of the facility and the benefit that they'll get out of it. So, just to quickly share some dates, July board meeting, I'm hoping to present the acceptance, the final acceptance. That'll give me time to get all the administrative paperwork taken care of, get final budgets for you to see, close out the project completely. Final completion is the end of May for the contractor. But again, there's administrative work that I'll be working on after that. And then in August, the statute requires us to provide an evaluation on the use of the alternative contracting process where we use the CMDC contractor within 30 days of the project acceptance. So that's why that August date is on there as well. And I'll present those findings at that time. That's just
So I have a question.
Any other
So
questions?
you raised a question about the check from BG. Do you guys understand how that operates? Have you ever told them why that's the way it is?
We've covered the basics. I can review
Yeah,
those again for
PG
refresher
has
if you
control
want.
of that generator. They can, if they have to do peak loading, shed, or either way, they can use that to help balance their system, and hence the reason we get that program credit is by allowing them to do that. So,
Yeah, we're allowing them some control. We own the facility,
Yeah,
of course,
we own it.
and we still purchase power under a normal schedule for use of normal power. The nice thing is that we have first right of use. Anytime that generator, a power outage occurs, our plant's running, it goes to the plant first. It doesn't go to the grid unless there's an excess.
but it keeps PG from having to do overbuilds and reduce the amount of switching that they have to do to make sure, because we are a priority user under the Public Utilities Commission. And so by allowing them to, and having a generator the size that we have, helps them, in turn they rebate back to us the savings that they make. So.
Any more questions?
Thanks, Mike.
That was the longest 5 minutes of the day.
Yeah, but you enjoyed it, didn't you?
Pushing
But I'm glad we did it, so we have all the question in.
Yeah, now it's done.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. So here's our accounts receivable aging through April 30th. We did do billing at the end of April, so therefore the number is up. We're about 64,000 less than we were in February, so actually the consumption for that time period was down a little bit. And, but we're up by about 121,000 compared with April of last year. As of today, we were down to about 939,000 outstanding, so, you know, people are starting to send their payments in, even though this is really early in the month. The payments are due on the 15th. The cash and investment position, for April 30th, we have about 7.6 million total. We have not posted the interest earnings. That seems to, it's close to $3,500 a month. We did have an interest payment on the outstanding bonds that came out on May 1st, and that's not shown there. But we collected more than that in water rate revenue in the same time period. So we are, this is reporting on through the end of the third quarter, 75% of the way through the budget. Our revenue is close to 78%, our expenditures are about 68%. CIP expenditures are 58% of budget, and our SDC revenue is 133% of budget. We've had a few larger SDCs come in. We had a meter at Clackamas Town Center for a new building there. So here's a chart that shows revenue compared over the last 5 years through 9 months into the fiscal year. And here's a chart showing our expenditures through that same time period. And then here, for those of you that wanted, here's the actual numbers. So you can see the variance between year to year, but the percentages are based on the budget, so the budget numbers are actually different year to year. And as promised to the board in the past, I'm giving kind of a summary of our line item activity. So we are at 77% of the revenues. We still have April and June billing that's not included in this, so we've got 2 more months worth of billing. Personnel services are about 68%. Salary and wages are at 72%, and again, we're at 75%, so it looks like we budgeted that pretty well. The benefits and taxes are a little bit lower, and that's primarily due to Senate Bill 822 that changed the PERS rate that we needed to pay. And but then we do have a couple of things like workers' comp and the HRA VIVA are paid in full for the year. Materials and services are about 69% of budget, so we've got about 240,000 in that first 75% that we have not spent. We do know that there are certain things that come in towards the end of the year. We have some training dollars, short school where the guys go to renew their certifications is in the spring, and so that's not included yet. We will probably exceed the budgeted line item in a few areas. Training, legal, dues and memberships, maintenance supplies and water purchases. And we're kind of aware of all of those things and what's going on with those, so we're carefully watching all of the other expenditures to make sure that we don't exceed the budget, the appropriation of materials and services by the end of the year. So we're keeping an eye on it. We're below 75% at 3/4 of the way through the year, so that's a good sign, and stuff doesn't happen equally, but our estimates show that we should remain within the appropriations by year end. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Want to take a guess at an ending fund balance?
We have a number in the budget. I think it's going to be over 2 million.
Is it? Okay.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Carol. Management report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the packet, there are some documents attached. At the last board meeting, ex-Commissioner Kemper approached the board and had some concerns about a site or development that's gone on down the street. And the board asked us to look into it. And so I've asked Dr. DiLorenzo to report on that. She's been out in the field all day, so she's a working doctor. But she has come tonight to respond to any questions specifically that was raised. I think a couple of board members sent us a couple of questions, and some of that may have come from some of the materials that Commissioner Kemper had presented. So Suzanne, could you kind of come forward and cover that for us? That would be great. Do you have your comments? I have them here, can you?
No, I haven't looked at So I'm not going to go over every single question that's in the packet. You can read them yourself. I'll just give you the abridged version.
And that would be under attachment A1 in your binder, in your packet.
And I was able to answer some of the questions a little bit better after talking to a few extra people. So it didn't quite make the deadline. So basically the process is that this facility needs to actually have the land use approved prior to applying for any permits. So the DEQ won't even accept the application until it knows that the county is okay with how the site is going to be used. And so that's why the county has okayed the site, but there are no permits attached to it. That's the process. Now, part of the permit that goes into the DEQ that they will be required to comply with, which is also what the county is requiring, which makes sense, they're both requiring this, is that they will have to be able to basically adhere to all federal standards, federal and local standards. So they will be required to apply for what's called a WPCF permit, which is a water pollution control facility. They already have a permit up in Boring at their current location. As far as I can tell, there have been no violations, but that's as far as I can tell. And when they apply for this permit, they will also have to submit an engineering report which will explain exactly what they will do if there is some sort of spill, some sort of accident, and how it will be handled and how they will avoid any water quality issues, and it will also have to encompass the entire area and how it could potentially be adversely affected. So that's all required in the permit that the DEQ will review and either decide to approve or not. Now, where the facility is located, it's set pretty far back. It's about a quarter mile. It's got decent elevation, so if there's a flood, it shouldn't be an issue. I'm not saying that would never be an issue. There could be an apocalyptic flood.
So which floodplain is it out of, the 100-year or the 500-year?
Probably 500 year.
Don't know.
I don't know for sure.
It's simple, you just look at the map. It's
I asked engineering for a floodplain map. It's coming.
And it's available online if you want to look at it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right. So, but overall, it shouldn't be an issue. The concern would be with stormwater runoff. Now, the reason, which is interesting, that they had approached West to see if they could take their effluent was because if the local sewage treatment plant will take your effluent, you do not need a WPCF permit. So West basically told them, don't hold your breath. So now they have to go through the DEQ process. In my opinion, we can go and we can oppose the facility, but I also feel that we should trust the DEQ in the process. They're not exactly, super lenient. We had to deal with the DEQ when we were just letting Allen sludge out on our field. That wasn't going to go anywhere. We had to do a full assessment, full report, write it, and get approval. Also, CRW has already approved that site for water service. So that's also something that should be taken into account. So, do you have any questions?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I had some dealings with DEQ a few years ago on a project, and I had filed on them because the contractor was polluting the water, the wetlands, and changing a creek, and, which wasn't supposed to have been happening. And they ignored it. I'm wondering if they'll do the same thing in this case.
They may or may not. The DEQ, it doesn't necessarily, okay, there's a couple of ways to look at this. They don't necessarily go out and police the grounds, okay, but Wes also has an interest here, because Wes is required to really keep track of those TMDL for E. coli. And that's what you would really be seeing coming through, in my opinion. You'd have peaks in E. coli. So if, let's say, they had violation, they would be required to report it to OERS, so we would know. We would know immediately. And usually if there's a spill in the area, they call us directly. So we would have to adjust our treatment processes. But Wes would also want to be watching them, because if they're peaking on the TMDL, there's a really good chance that Wes is going to be required to do some mitigation, which they don't like to do, because it's going to be stormwater runoff, which means it's going to get traced back to Speedy Septic. Will this definitely happen? No. It's just, it's really, the ball's in our court. If we want to disprove and we want to argue, we can absolutely do that. We can write a letter, we can go there, and we can say that, you know, we don't want this in our area. But I mean, it's up to the board.
So, one additional piece of information, Mr. Chair, as a part of this report. I did receive a call today from ex-Commissioner Kemper. She left the last meeting under the impression that the board was going to write a letter. I responded to her that I didn't quite get that take, that the board had essentially asked for a review, such as the one that you're getting today. So she asked me to convey to the board her desire that CRW write a letter. I just thought that was...
Where would that letter go? DEQ, to the county, the planning department, or?
I think it's, and I'm guessing here because she wasn't specific and we didn't talk about it, but I think her expectation that it would go to the approving body
Yeah.
that's handling.
So would it go in the ZDO file?
Yeah. It's up for review,
Right.
right?
There's a timeline on, you know.
Very soon,
Who is the approving body?
the county.
Yeah.
The County Board of Commissioners?
No.
The
no,
land use,
Or okay, the
Yeah.
land use board.
It's just, no, there's no land use board. Wait a second. So they make application to the county planning division. They issue a ZDO number. That opens the file. They have a pre-meeting to kind of go over what all the stuff is. That's the meeting you went to, right? Didn't you go to that meeting to hear kind of what county was gonna kind of make them, I don't know. I thought somebody went to that meeting.
Engineering typically attends the.
Yeah, right.
So,
You should have gotten notice
We
that they
have
would
staff.
have a pre-app.
Correct.
Right, for that thing. So that's how the county's always been. And so they start the process, and I believe you're right. The county says, okay, we accept your application, right? And then there's this whole list of conditions that they have, and part of it is the permitting from DEQ and from WES. And so for me, and I can't speak for any of you, I think timing for this board is important. I think we don't want to be too soon, and we don't want to be too late. And I think it does matter to the quality of the water in the watershed, both in runoff and it all ends up in the river. And so it matters to me that we watch the process, make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and that the county doesn't let anything slide, and then somebody brings it back to us and says, okay, here's what's going on, this one kind of stinks, we don't think they've done due diligence on this, or they, you know, that they did a good job with that. We're gonna need you to look at that stuff for us very carefully, and let us know if you see something that doesn't look right, or that you have concerns about, because those are the kind of things that we need to weigh in on, so.
also keep in mind, we do now have the ability to track sources of fecal pollution. If it does wind up going through, we can go right to where we think their stormwater runoff will be, take a sample, look at the DNA, and determine human or not.
How long does it take you to run that test?
I could get it done in a day.
Could you? So in 36 hours, you could have pretty good confidence that you know where it came from?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan?
My concern is that the single most important question that we asked in this series of questions did not get answered, and you didn't get a return phone call on that particular question. And that is, how are they going to contain this material?
Right.
And they chose not to answer that question by not calling you back.
We would need a
So-
copy of their engineering report. It's required to be in that report.
For me, that's a big question, because they should have called you back,
Right.
for starters.
But the reality fact is, barring that they didn't call me back, that engineering report may very well not be completed.
I was gonna say, they didn't call you back because they didn't know the answer yet. 'Cause
Yeah.
The report isn't done.
Right,
Yeah.
and so, because they're at step one, can they use the land for that? And step two is apply DEQ, which is the engineering report is required.
So any letter at this point is premature, as
I
I'm
think it is.
hearing?
I think it is. I think we wait and see how the process goes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, our job is to be fair on both sides of this thing and make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to do all the right things. And if they don't, then we raise the question.
Right.
Okay, I think, I looked at their shop up there at Ford, and there's nothing there. Well, there's a series of parking structures up there, and that's all they have. They're right off the highway, and I'd be interested in knowing what they're doing with their waste material now, because there's no place there for it to be handled.
Well, right now, their operation is out in Boring.
Yeah, I went in there.
Yeah, and then they truck the waste out. I can't remember the exact location, but they
Uh-huh.
take it out, and then they apply it to the field.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so it doesn't get primary treatment before it goes to
It gets some kind of treatment, it gets dewatered, and then they take the solids out. That's as far as I got. Yeah. And I got that from, reading one of their DEQ permits. So, but I just can't remember the exact location where they take it.
Any more questions?
If Cindy answers.
We'll get there. Is that the end of your report?
Any other questions?
I have just one comment on this. Probably there's questions about what's going on now within the county as far as the department. Maybe one of us should go and ask them what's going on, what's happening, what's the status.
I'm sorry, to interrupt. So I did talk to the county, and their status is, it's been approved, they followed all the proper channels, the report is online, if you wanna read it. And then there's the upcoming meeting where it could be discussed. Yeah.
Now I'm confused. What's been approved? If we don't have a completed engineering report and all of the processes that he's talking about, then what could they have approved?
Just the ability to use the land, if certain conditions are met. That's all that's been approved.
So when they zone the land, they give a list of conditions for a particular zone, okay?
So in other words, it's approved if they meet all these conditions, is that what you're telling me?
It's approved by the county for what they're going to use it for. but
It
it's-
meets the zoning requirement.
Right, but it is
End of
not
story.
approved by the
Oh,
DEP.
just,
That's
it
it.
falls within the zoning requirement.
That's it.
Yes.
That's all, that's
That's all I needed to
all
hear.
we are.
Yeah.
Now I got it.
Thank you.
You said that, I
Yeah.
So,
There is no
would
board.
you approach the county and get a report for the board?
Sure.
And no more questions, we'll have public comment. Cindy,
Thanks, Susan.
Yes.
sorry to get you up here before you have ours.
Well, because there's some things missing out of the doctor's report that I'm concerned that you don't have before you make a consideration. Although you briefly touched on the fact that it has been approved by the building Services to go forward. The land use has been approved. It's a hearing that's coming up next week on the 15th. What we were looking for from CRW is the fact that this is troubling. They're located, as the doctor said, just not even a quarter of a mile. It's like 0.24 of a mile from the river. The requirement that has been in the ZDOs in the past, until it was recently removed, edited out in this past fall, was 0.25. So this is within that 0.25 spacing. But besides that, there is an agreement, Al, you may know the name of this process better than I, boundary, there's another agreement that they're supposed to put together with regards to rivers that it is in violation of. The CPO, the local CPO, Clackamas CPO, had come through Commissioner Kemper. This was not a personal request from her. She is here representing our Clackamas CPO. There was a vote at the CPO to go to the hearings officer and to ask for this to be turned around and not to approve this use. Why? They have not got a similar facility. It is a similar business, but it's not a similar facility out in Boring. There is across the street in Caddy Corner, there is a composting facility closer to the river that the county has been saying that it's on a temporary lease until they can get through the DEQ, if they can get it through DEQ. They're going to be using this facility, if it gets permitted in there, to then turn around and be able to permit the composting. This is not something we want to have on the river. Put composting on one side and the reduction of
Human waste.
From traveling toilets, basically. That's all they're bringing it out from. So that's got all sorts of gunk that you don't get through normal toilets. So we came to CRW because we thought they probably got the permit, made their due process go through, and saw that it appeared to be okay. Because when we first got it, it appeared to be okay. But it's not okay. The more research that we did, the more we found out that it did not meet even the barest of requirements with regard to site of the process. The reason we came to you was because you had already approved it. And we thought that perhaps you didn't know of these other pieces of material. And I'm sorry I don't have it with me tonight to give to you, but Ms. Kemper called me and said, would you please go make sure that we're covered on this? And so I came from something else that I was not prepared for this tonight.
So I have a question before
Sure.
you get too far on. So why did the county remove that distance requirement from the?
God only knows. It was
Okay.
done by the county commissioners. Your guess is as good as mine.
It seems odd to me that,
Very much so,
that they would
yes.
do that, because that's really your mainline protection
Yes, sir.
for making sure that there's nothing that can get into the river.
What my only assumption is, that when that was up for discussion with the county commissioners, they were told that they were still using this other agreement that was in place, and that it was in there as well, and they, I guess, thought that they could take it out and still be covered. And they are still covered, but nobody uses that as a ZDO, as part of the ZDO process, because it's not in the ZDO process.
Right, because it's not part of that requirement, right?
But for safety reasons, safety of our water reasons, it is too doggone close to the river. And it may be up higher, doesn't mean that it's not gonna get down there. And so we came here to ask CRW to please send a letter to the hearings officer stating that you have questions that could be very deep and dangerous questions, but you have questions about this facility, and can't it be placed someplace else in the county? Does it have to be that close? Especially, it's only 0.75 upstream from our intake. I mean, do you want it that close to our intake? So
So I have more questions. you may not know the answer, I don't know
That's
that anybody
probably
in the room does. And for me, I don't know what zone they have to be in order to do this kind of stuff. And so, are there any other parcels of ground zoned appropriately for this use that are farther away from the river?
Yes, and it's industrial, and light industrial, et cetera, zoning, and I don't have the number for it, but I know that it is in a correct zoning area, but it is we were told by the county 2 years ago and reinforced last spring by the same gentleman from the county, that they were looking to make this an industrial complex that was going to be the industrial complex for the county. This was gonna draw those big players into the county. That's why we had all this new construction going in, to get the roads easier to transport, to make sure that we had solid ability to bring people into these wonderful buildings that we're gonna build with this view of the river and everything wonderful because of our river. It's not gonna be wonderful if we have problems with it because we put a smelly, dirty, leaky, potentially leaky, type of a business there. This was not the type of business that we were anticipating they were putting into that commercial industrial area. And they're putting in direct opposition to a piece of property they've been claiming they want to move and get rid of out of that area. If they're gonna put something that's, in our way of thinking, even worse, why would they put something like that close to the other one? Unless they wanted to find a way to complement and get into both of them. And I don't even know if that's the thought process that's going on, because the commissioners haven't chimed in on this. Their statements to us is, once we've approved the ZDOs, it's all up to building development. So they don't even get involved in that anymore. That's why we need the elected officials who are worried about our river, you all, to please send something that says to that hearing officer, yes, there's something that you might want to take another look at here. And being that close to the river is #1 priority. And making sure that DEQ lands on top of it is another. When we fought the composting across the street and down the way a bit, Representative Bill Kennemer and Representative Jeff Reardon were both interested and called DEQ and told them that they were going to be watching this. I'm sure that they're going to be watching this as well to make sure that it stays put. But local elected representation making a comment about this to the hearings officer is something that is going to make it even more viable. So I would take the concerns that the doctor put in her report to you, and when I was reading through that, I'm going, yes, that covers it, yes, that covers it. And she specifically listed the distance from the river as, I think you said 0.21 to 24?
0.21 to 0.45.
Yes. And that is under the viability 0.25. And
Thank you for your comments. Any more questions?
Well, it is of concern to me, and I suspect to others on the board, and I'm not adverse to sending a letter enumerating our questions and concerns. At this point, I don't know that we have enough information to say we are opposing something. I think we need more information, particularly, as I indicated, getting question number 2 answered, which they apparently didn't feel they could or chose not to answer. But we could send a version of these questions to the next hearing, at least indicating that CRW has concerns about this project in that location. And these are questions that we have. How do you intend to address these issues? I could support a letter of that nature. I just don't think we know enough to say no or yes at this point. Just raise the questions.
So here's where I am. I've been fighting the county about sludge for 20 years. Because I live in an area, so does you, that regularly gets a dose of sludge on the ground around our houses. And if it rains like on today, it'll gag a maggot, let me tell you. It's just about all you can stand. You don't want to go outside, it's all bad. And the county has always turned a deaf ear. They absolutely do not want to take this issue up, and they do not want to deal with what they're going to do with the solids that come out of the west plants. And so I worry whether this board or any group is ever going to get the county to change the way they do business as far as how they manage the solids, whether it be this business or any business. And so hence my frustration. I don't know how to proceed because, you know, I've taken pictures of stuff coming out of the truck when it's delivered to the field that they say can't be there, and so I said, oh, I'll go get you a photograph. Here you go, that's what just came out of your truck. Oh, that didn't come out of our truck. Oh, yes, it did. And so I'm just, I don't know. I don't trust Wes. I just don't. I don't think that they're honest with citizens of this county about what they're doing with that material. And I understand that it's a tough decision. What do you do? What do you do with the solids? I was told 10 years ago that they were going to stop dumping on the fields and they were going to put in a plant to make all of that stuff solid, no liquid anymore. And then they were going to, I don't know, they had some way that they were going to reuse it some other way, burn it or something. I can't remember what it was. I've lost track because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And so, you know, I don't know what you do. I'm at a loss there. So if you guys have any suggestions, I'm there.
Well, that's the reason that we make agenda items and then to have a motion before we discuss it. We've been discussing it for 20 minutes and we're not any closer than we were to start with. So I'm going to cut this off unless somebody has a motion.
If a motion is in order, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to send a letter to the agency prepared by the general manager outlining the questions and concerns.
That turd didn't take long to turn.
Hey, I know how to do this. Basically, asking the questions that we've listed here and any others you can think of, just indicating our concern about this project and its location. And we don't have to take a position specifically at this point in time, but just a letter indicating our concerns.
To the hearing officer?
That's fine with me. To whomever they're going to be applying to next.
That is the next step.
That's what I would suggest that we do. So that's my motion.
I'd second.
Okay.
Motion been made and second. Any more comments? Have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Hubbardston?
Aye.
Commissioner Klani?
I think it needs more study. I'll abstain.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0-1.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair, is that letter to be signed by the general manager or by yourself or some other board member?
The motion was the general manager.
Okay, I could write it, I just didn't know if you wanted me to sign it, so I'll do it.
What do you think, what?
I said, I can write it, but I can also sign it as well. I just wanted to be clear on it. All right, back to the manager's report. And I'll try to make this quick. And for the audience's benefit, that we're talking about speedy septic, and that wasn't identified when we started talking about it. The second item that I have in my report, board members, is that I attended a legal seminar put on by our labor law firm, and essentially we were talking about employment law, There was cautions provided to both management personnel and boards as a management entity. Essentially, the gist of that presentation was that it seemed like the trend in litigation has shifted in the state of Oregon and Washington, particularly in these areas of whistleblowers and harassment and the like. The next item is labor negotiations. Essentially, we have had our 4 meetings with the union now, and we're now talking about money, and we haven't come to any agreement on that issue. We're probably a couple of percentage points in terms of total dollars apart if you add up all the money. The next item that I have is that although we did decide to select United Health Organization as the primary coverage, and now we have to talk about how we pay for it. We had lunch with Sunrise Water employees. Our employees met with theirs, talking with their general manager, Mr. Hathorn, and we are now starting the organizing process where we will be beginning to meet with comparable groups of people from both Sunrise and CRW to begin mapping out a plan as to how we can utilize each other's resources. As you know, the budget document has been prepared. We have another meeting scheduled, and looked like we made pretty good progress at the last meeting. So I think that we're close, but we're not there yet. The Luba case with Oregon City, as you know, we have reached tentative agreement with them. I believe that the city meets on the 21st. I think that's the date.
That's correct.
21st, and that's when this issue will be presented to them. And as you know, there's one other signature in addition to the city that has to go on, and that's the commissions, and that will be presented at the next commission meeting. One of the questions that I've been asked by a couple of commissioners is, given the projection of what all this was going to cost us legally, do we have any idea what has it cost to kind of resolve this Oregon City issue? And the number that I got from the attorneys is about $16K, which would be split 50-50. So that's about $8,000 per entity between Sunrise and CRW.
It's a lot less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that was the reason for the question.
Thank you.
Okay. We've already talked about executive session. We also, Commissioner Humbertson and myself met with Commissioner Fish from the City of Portland. The short version of that is that they're interested in entering into an intergovernmental agreement. There are some caveats, which is the initiative that's going on in Portland. So there probably won't be any serious discussion with them until after the May election, where we have a better idea of what's going on. We do have an operations update, and essentially staff has met with the other water providers. We've met with the fire department. They had been some time since they had met, and they had a very eventful discussion where we shared information with them. They're also planning to meet in the future, and it was a very eventful meeting. And the other issue that we had was the activity that we had in cross connection and backflow prevention, and also with meter maintenance. We now have about 313 electronic meters deployed for our industrial customers.
I'm not sure what the exact number is.
I got it today from your staff.
Okay. There's 313.
You take a day off,
Right around it.
it doesn't pay, you know?
That's why you
I wanted to
have
be
good
certain,
staff.
so, Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Under commission business, item 9, be sure and get your expense reports in and get this evaluation filled out and get them to Kim. We have a May special meeting, work session. Do we have dates for it?
The 19th, Mr. Chairman, at 6 o'clock here.
Okay. Any objection to that? With that, we are adjourned.